Welcome to Built to Win, the podcast created to help you take your business to the next level by developing a success mindset that's made for the long run. In this episode, The Slight Edge, Neora's Executive VP of Business Development, Dave Fleming, talks to company founder Jeff Olson about his best-selling book, The Slight Edge. Join us as Jeff shares some of the key principles behind the book, tells us what led him to write it, and how we all can apply those principles every day.
Well, welcome everybody to this episode of Built to Win. This podcast focuses on leadership principles, whether you're an entrepreneur, whether you are in business for yourself, working with somebody else, or just looking for some principles to live life in a bigger, better, more successful way. This is for you. And today we have a truly remarkable opportunity to talk to one of our co-hosts and one of the founders of this podcast, Jeff Olson. And Jeff, don't blush, but for those that don't know who you are, I want to give a little bit of background on who you are, because what you've done in business and just generally in life is remarkable. For those of you that don't know who Jeff Olson is, he's multiple times over CEO, successful CEO. He's run companies from legal products to television networks to technology. He's kind of done a little bit of everything and done it very, very well. I mean, people talk to and about Jeff as one of the most successful entrepreneurs in every channel that he's entered. So he's one of those guys that just consistently brings success over and over and over again to every venture. And there are people who quote Jeff daily. In fact, almost every week, I find somebody who's quoting Jeff's philosophy or referring to some of the things that they've learned from his book, The Slight Edge. And that's what we're going to talk to Jeff about today, is the book, which is a national bestseller. And this book is prolific. You run into this book all the time. You run into people who read this book. In fact, just the other day, we saw a podcaster, leadership expert, who was quoting your book, The Slight Edge, and it was something that she reads every single year as just part of her mindset to prepare for success. So we're going to talk about The Slight Edge today. And so Jeff, for those of our listeners who aren't familiar with The Slight Edge, I want to kind of start out with, where did it come from and why The Slight Edge?
Okay, Dave, thanks a lot. I'm glad to be here to talk about The Slight Edge. I always say this is the book that's never been loved, but it has gone out to be loved by everybody. What I mean by that, we've never spent one penny in marketing on it. Really, we've never promoted it. It's never been put out in the book stands. It's never had any of that type of promotion. Yet it's gone on and sold millions and millions of books, and it's gone all around the world, and it's affecting universities and sports teams and hospitals and insurance agencies and drug sales companies, and I could go on and on and on. It's had its life that it's just gone on, and it's done it organically. So that kind of speaks to the truth of it. So I think why I wrote it spoke a lot to what people are wondering. Okay, and what happened for me is as Dave spoke to, I've been blessed. Okay, when I came out of college, I ended up being one of the youngest airport managers, and I spoke about this in the last podcast. But again, very simply, but I've become youngest airport managers, and then I went on and became head of the manager of intelligence systems division at Texas Instruments, a Fortune 100 company, and then went on and built a Center of America, a solar company that was very successful. And then I went on and actually did other different things. But another thing that happened that was pretty cool is I built, I was a CEO of a global electronics company. And every one of these things, I knew nothing about it when I got into it. Okay, but I became successful in it. And went from there, did a TV network, and went from there, did a legal company. And every one of them were successful. Okay. And through that process, I was always kind of questioning myself, why did that work? At the same time, through that process, I've always was running into people who had the right attitude. They wanted to be successful. They wanted to climb the corporate ladder, or they wanted to try to build their business. They had the why, okay? And they actually had demonstrated ability before. They'd gone through a school, okay? Or they had worked at a job where they showed up in the morning every single day and worked all day long and until the end of that day. And they did that for years and years and years. So these people, they had a why, they had desire, they had ability, they would show up consistently. And all of a sudden, when they were given the opportunity to think for themselves, they wouldn't apply what they did for other people. And so I always found it amazing what you were willing to do for other people, but what you weren't willing to do for yourself. And what you had to do is people didn't have structure. See, when you're in a school, you have structure. You show up at this time. You're in a corporation, you have structure, okay? Even when you buy a franchise, you have structure. But still, at the end of the day, you're to be successful, even inside of a corporation or being successful in your own business, at the end of the day, it comes down to your mindset, the way you think, okay? Because that really is your structure. So I started focusing in on that because I wanted to come up with something that would get people to treat their mind like an office, okay? That you show up to, you clock in, you work, you put in the time, okay, to get the results. And so I started working about that, and I started thinking about that, and I started, thinking about through my past, started thinking about through all the people I'd engaged with through time, in traditional business, and all the people I'd worked with now in independent contractor business, and start trying to come up with a concept, a way that I could give them something that would get them to do for themselves what they've always been willing to do for somebody else, but do it for themselves so that they could have what they've always wanted. So that's where the whole thing started.
That's remarkable that was something that you picked up, and you've been very, very, as you said, blessed. But I think that, let's be honest, it's not just that. Like you've brought a lot of experience, you brought a lot of skills to all the businesses that you've been associated with, and that success is proven. And I've always believed that if someone is successful one time, that doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to be successful every time. And in your case, you've been successful every time. And so I think that gives our listeners a little bit of a perspective on what this book is all about. This isn't just a self-help book. This isn't one of those kinds of books. This is one of those that is built on real life experience and real success. So Jeff, the next question for me, and probably for a lot of our listeners, is you had the why, and then how did you do it? How did this come about?
So again, I was looking at what I had done, and looking at what other people had done, and I was trying to put it together, how to put this together. So I started thinking about it, and I started coming with a concept of the slide edge, and I started actually teaching it to people. And through that process, I started forming my thoughts, but a lot of things happened along the way that really influenced me. One of them, as you heard me say, I had a TV network. Well, that TV network was around personal development. And in there, I had the best lectures, New York Times bestsellers, authors, speakers. I was the mecca of personal development, producing all kinds of production, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of shows. And so I got to know these people at a very personal level, and I saw that their content was amazing. But there's something I saw along the way that kind of bothered me, and that is the way that their content was delivered, which was, if you get this book or you come to my seminar, you do this thing in 120 days or 150 days or some short period of time, everything was going to work out. And so what had happened, these people had their day of disgust, which turned into a day of decision. I'm going to do something about my life. I go to that seminar, or I'm going to listen to that podcast, or I'm going to read that book. And they'd get the information and they'd start applying the information. And then time would go by, and it'd be 120, 150, 180 days down the road. And they weren't really getting the results that they thought they were going to get. And all of a sudden they lost belief in the information. There was nothing wrong with this information. What was wrong was the philosophy by which the information was given to them. It was given to them under a philosophy of quantum leap. And so what happened, it wasn't the information, it was the way they had got the information. So what I also see is when a person now they start thinking, I can't do this, okay? Because they were given a philosophy of quantum leap. They wouldn't just go back to where they were that day when they made a decision to do it. They go back to a place worse than they were, because they lost not only belief in the information, they lost belief in themselves. So I realized there had to be a philosophy. What this book has turned out to be, it really is the precursor to making the health book work, to making the relationship book work, to make the finance book work, because it gives you a philosophy, a mindset to take the content. It's not the content. It's how you apply the content. It's not the hows. These books will give you the hows. It's how you apply the hows. So I realized we had to have a way to get people to take all this content, whatever they're learning, however they're learning it, and have a philosophy in which to apply it to make it work. I've always said if somebody spends their lifetime learning something and then they write a book, why would you spend your lifetime learning it when you could just read the book in a few days or a week or a couple of weeks, whatever it might be? But again, you do that and you have the wrong philosophy. You think you're going to get quantum leap results because that's the way it's been marketed to you. Then you get there, then all of a sudden you lose belief in the information. There was nothing wrong with the information. You got a lifetime experience there, okay? It was the philosophy that you get it, and you start losing belief in yourself and you quit applying yourself. So that is really, it was when I started doing it, that was the how. That was the thing that was driving. And it was really interesting. I remember one time I was going through the Phoenix airport, and I talk about this in the book. And it's early in the morning, like 6:30, and I go to get my shoe shine. And there's a shoe shine lady, and she was the most personable person, and she could talk about anything. And I looked over, it had a whole thing of magazines she was reading, and everybody walked by, talked to her. Everybody liked her, and everything was great about her. But she was a shoe shine girl, and she was talking to me about how she didn't have enough money to send, and this was in Phoenix, to send her kid to a cheerleader camp in Dallas. And then I looked down at the books that she was reading, or the magazines, and they were all about trash. There was nothing about being a better person, about how you think, okay, about your mindset, about techniques, none of that there. So she was putting in the time, but she was reading the wrong content. So at that point I said, okay, it's not about just getting the right philosophy, it's getting people to realize that they have to have the right information too, okay? And in that time frame, also, I was really focusing on that the thing that I'd seen in my success in life, the thing I'd seen in people around me were successful, and what had worked for me, and we spoke about this a lot in the last podcast, is the people you associate with. The laws of association. You're the combined average of the 5 people you need to, you associate the most. And so I started thinking there has to be something for this. And so I started writing it, and I started teaching it to people in my business. And people kept coming back to me, and I didn't even have the name Slide Edge yet. Just I have a concept, okay? And I would draw this little chart, and I'd go through the thing. We'll talk about that later on. And I go through it, and people would come back to me and go, wow, my business is really moving. Then people come back, hey, I'm losing weight now. I'm applying this to weight loss. I come back, I'm exercising now because I'm applying this. And I was going, wow, that's really good. I saw it starting to have this other life. So everybody said, you got to give this to us. So I typed it up, 120 pages, and gave it out to the people I was working with. Again, they came back and said, this is incredible. I started getting people saying, you got to do a book. And I'd never seen myself as an author, but I thought, okay, I got to do this. And so I actually took time off. I went to a resort, Mountain Shadow Resorts, I think it's called, up in Phoenix. I got off in a corner of a resort, and I just started writing, and I started putting everything down. And the hardest thing to do is to put a pen to a blank piece of paper. I just started drawing the whole thing. I started drawing the charts that you see in there, and it didn't have no name at that time. But I started putting all the concepts together, and I went back and I put it on a big wall in my office that I looked at all the time, and I just kept adding things to it with no judgment. What was good, bad, no order. Started putting things, and I finally wrote down the word right edge. I'm going to call this the right edge. Okay, so that's what it was for a long time. Eventually, I started writing the book, and I hired a guy named John Mann, who's a great person who thinks the way I do, because I'm not a writer. I gave him all the content. I just poured content into him every single day. We'd talk every day. I'd send him information. But he helped me write it, and I speak to that because he could write so people could understand what I was saying. And we went through that, and in that process, it came up the word slight, that it's all about the slight edge. And I finally put the word slight edge on it, and I sent that book to 200 people. And that was it. It was over, okay? It exploded. It just took off everywhere. And I mean, all of a sudden, universities were using it. Sports teams in college were using it, saying it's why they had a winning season. One of the most amazing stories, I had a person I know personally who had a stroke, who was just a believer in the slight edge. And the doctor said, you're not going to really be able to walk or speak again. This is a person who played instruments, okay, who was very alive. And this person was in bed, couldn't speak, couldn't move. But in their head, they had a philosophy of the slight edge. And we'll get to the slight edge is doing the little things. It seemed to make no difference at all in the act of doing them. Just do them over and over and over and over with consistency and persistency, with a good attitude long enough for it to start working. And so what he did, he would look at his finger every day, and he said it moved, but it didn't move. But he just kept looking until it moved, and all of a sudden it just moved. It didn't move. And every day he tried to talk, and he couldn't talk. But all of a sudden he went, He's walking, he's talking, he's playing instruments now. And the hospital wrote it was because he believed in the slight edge. Because how did you do this? And he said, the slight edge. So I had these experiences going on all the time. It was coming back to me in all different directions. So I enlisted my daughter, Amber, who you heard from. And I said, we got to write the book now. We got to really write the book. So we got together. By then, thousands of testimonies are pouring in. People losing 100 pounds, people climbing the corporate ladder, their business changing, relationships changing. It was all over the board. So I said, we need to put those testimonials up front, not in the back like I do in most books, because I want people to hear stories of all kinds of people to relate to, and then we'll talk about it. And so we wrote the book, put it together, put it out. Again, we've never promoted it, and it's just taken off. It's moved it around the world. I could tell you all these different corporations using it, these people using it. I get testimonials all the time. And it's been just a great, incredible thing to watch this book have so much success with no love, okay? Although it's become a very loved book, it all happened organically. And it only happened because I was trying to solve a simple question. Why do people take great content and it doesn't work with them? And it was because they didn't have the right philosophy in their head, okay? And when you take that and you start applying it to your health, your finances, your relationships, all of a sudden, all these things start to happen. So that's what happened. That's how it came together.
It must be pretty rewarding to see the love that this book has received. Like you said, it was not well loved. It was not promoted. This wasn't a book that was like a big book tour, like massive marketing effort to make this a bestseller. This was very much grassroots and grew almost through word of mouth and personal experience and recommendations of other people who've read the book and said, you've got to get into this. And now it's in multiple different languages. It's in dozens of countries. I mean, this thing it's taken on a life of its own. Did you know that it was going to do that? Did you have any idea that it would be this successful?
No, actually, exact opposite. I was so tired of people asking me about it because it was working for them, and ask me questions about it. I said, I just got to write something down and give it to everybody so everybody leave me alone. It was actually all it wasn't really a labor of love. It was a labor of get this away from me so I don't have to talk about it anymore. I want to go off and do other things. And but I knew there was something here. I knew I needed to put it together. It wasn't meant to be a bestseller book. It wasn't meant to have this kind of impact. It was meant to get it away from me. Okay, and it's gone. When you say it's gone around the world, it's so funny. I've had people from Turkey reach out to me, going, "Oh my gosh, your book here in Turkey, we all love it." And I go, "But we've never printed it in Turkey." Well, people have taken the book and printed it up in Turkish themselves. And I go, you know what? This was never about that. It was about getting the philosophy away from me and get it going out there. And so I really don't care how it gets to people, as long as it gets to people, and as long as it works for people. I understand the publishing world, and I understand the media world, and I understand how much of it's driven by promotion and market advertising. To see something totally driven by word of mouth, totally driven by people's experience using the concept, totally working for people in all different categories of life with nothing but that simple concept, it's been very rewarding, because you hit something, you hit the nail on the head. And again, what to me it's the precursor. It's the precursor that makes the health books work. It's the precursor that makes the finance book work. It's the precursor that makes the relationship book work. If you understand the flat edge, you can go take any podcast, any event you go to for training, any book you read, and if you have the flat edge philosophy, you'll make that content work. And that's what's been so rewarding for me, because I just do believe there's incredible content out there. I just, from my experience, from my observation, from a very unique perspective, knew that the reason a lot of it was working for a lot of people was by which the philosophy of which they received it. And if I could shift that, it would change everything. And it did.
That's incredible. And I think a lot of us who know you maybe aren't super surprised by the success of the book. And I think a lot of our listeners are probably familiar with the Slight Edge. They've probably read it, or at least familiar with it. But for those that might be new to the podcast, Built to Win, or don't know you, What is the Slight Edge?
Okay, so the slide again is the philosophy. The philosophy is everything you know, how you hold it, how it affects what you do. Okay, when you have a good philosophy, it gives you you heard this earlier. You'll get the right attitude. You get the right attitude, you have the right actions. And I always believe people see actions is the content. Like I said in the book, actions is the information that a health book gives you, a finance book, relationship gives you. That's the action. But it's the philosophy and attitude you have about it. It's not the hows. That's what these books give you. It's how you do the hows, okay? And so all the Slight Edge book is about a philosophy of applying the hows. And it's about discipline of doing little things. So here's a very simple definition. I've said it before. The Slight Edge is about doing the little things. It's always the little things that seem to make no difference at all in the act of doing them. I just do them over and over and over and over and over and over with consistency and persistency with a good attitude over a long enough period of time for the compound effect to kick in. See, the problem I have, everybody's looking, if you're sold on quantum leap, you're not going to do the little things consistently, persistently. You're looking for quantum leap. The little things don't seem to matter, but that's the only thing that matters, okay? And so when you're looking for quantum leap, what are you looking for? Quantum things to happen. That's not how you do it. I mean, it's like natural harmony of life. You plant seeds, you cultivate, and then you harvest. You know, you don't plant seeds and then harvest. But that's a bad philosophy. I'm going to plant seeds and harvest. I'm going to read a book and I'm going to be fixed. That's a bad philosophy. Good philosophy is I'm going to read the book and I'm going to do the little things it tells me to do, like in a health or relationships or finance, and I'm doing consistently and persistently over and over and over and over and over for a long enough period of time, like cultivating your garden, cultivating your field, till the compound effect, which is the harvest. You do 80% of the work before you see the results of your activity. But if you don't get that, you won't do the 80%. You'll go 20% and you'll quit. And here's the problem. Consistency and persistency. It's like a well. If you take a well and you're priming that pump and the water comes up and you finally get the water to come out the well, and then you walk away and you come back, the water's not there. It goes down. It's not about just doing the little things that you can do, the things that tell you to do in the health, finance, relationship book. It's about doing consistently, persistently over a long enough period of time so that you can get the water coming and get the stream flowing, okay? So that's what the book's about. It's about doing the simple little things. So I drew a chart, and it's in the book, and it's where you're starting, okay? And on the left of that chart is your philosophies. Your philosophy is everything you know. The Slight Edge is a philosophy. It's the way you process information, okay? On the other side is the hows. That's how you're going to do something. So what you'll find is the things you do to be successful in life are simple. They're just simple disciplines. The successful people exercise simple disciplines consistently over time. Unsuccessful people exercise simple errors in judgment. See, they just think it doesn't matter now, and so they just don't make a decision to do it. Successful people, they make simple decisions with discipline. They have discipline. Other people, they make simple errors in judgment. They just don't have discipline. They just kind of forget, okay? What you'll find is that curve goes like this and then it goes up. What you'll find is that people who early in life do the things and have the discipline, later in life have what people want. The people early in life who don't have discipline, who make simple errors in judgment, later in life do not have what they want. It's that simple, okay? And so what you'll find is it's easy to do and it's easy not to. What you have to do to be successful is easy to do. I can guarantee you there's not, when you read a book on finances, health, or relationship, there's nothing in there they're going to ask you to do that you can't do. They're all easy to do, but they're just as easy not to do. And what you have to understand is what successful people do is they have a goal, but it's not the goal. It's the journey. The journey is a progressive realization of a worthy goal. It's the journey that changes you, okay? You don't plant seeds and harvest. It's the journey. And so when you start realizing it's simple disciplines versus simple errors in judgment, it's about having discipline, not having discipline. You know, taking responsibility, not having responsibility. And doing the little disciplines consistently and persistently over time, you can make anything happen. It's no different. I said planting the seeds. So I'll give you some simple examples. People go, wow, okay, you heard us in the last podcast talk about your philosophies and things like that. That's a big journey. I go, no, what is the last book you read? And usually I haven't really read a book about anything. I go, can you read 10 pages of a good book a day? 10 pages. This is going to take a small amount of time. Okay. That's easy to do and easy not to do. Okay. One's a simple discipline. One's a simple error in judgment. Okay. You read 10 pages of a good book a day. Think about it. And I'm going to give you 2 days off. So that means you're just going to read 5 days a week. Okay. If you can't read, there's somebody that loves you enough to read 10 pages to you. Okay. You're going to just do that. And so that means about 250 days a year, you read 10 pages of a good book. That's 2,500 pages. That's about 10 books. If you're reading 10 good books, you're going to shift your philosophy. You're going to shift your attitude. You're going to shift your outlook. You're going to shift your mindset. Okay. You can't shift it if you did that 10 pages of good book a day. But that is a simple example of the slight edge. The beauty about the slight edge, because you heard us talking in the last podcast about surrounding your like-minded people. What if in your business or your life or your family, whatever it is, you have 5 people around you doing the same thing? You're reading 10 pages of a good book a day. That's 2,500 pages in a year. That's 10 books. But they're doing the same thing. That's 25,000 plus your 250. That's 50 books plus your 10. That's 60 books being read about positive things that are going to be filling your life, because not just what you read, because of the people you associate with. That's when the power of associations comes in, but it starts with you. That's a simple concept. Let me give another one. You diet. You read all the diet books, okay? So you read a diet book and it has a diet. It has something you should eat. You look at that, here's a salad. You go, that's a simple discipline. It's easy to do. But another side of the coin is there's a simple error in judgment. I'm going to eat the hamburger. That's a simple error in judgment. But you think it really doesn't matter in the moment. And that's where the mistake comes right there. See, most people don't realize you dig your grave with your teeth. You dig your grave with your teeth. But if you ate a hamburger and you fell over the heart attack after you ate that hamburger, or you survived it, would you eat another hamburger? No. But that simple error in judgment, consistently and persistently, because slight edge is always working for you or not working for you. It's always working. It's working for you or against you. That simple error in judgment, repeated over and over and over and over and over, consistent and persistent over time, will take you down the wrong journey. The simple discipline of reading 10 good pages of a good book, or the simple discipline of reading 10 bad pages of a good book, like the shoe shine lady was doing. She had the discipline. She was reading the 10 pages. She was reading the wrong stuff. The person who eats a salad, they have the discipline. They're eating the right stuff. But if you're eating the wrong stuff, it's the same discipline you're eating. They're both the same discipline. But one's making a simple discipline versus a simple error in judgment. They're easy to do. They're easy not to do. The slight edge is about you becoming very, very aware that every decision is a fork in the road. It's a fork in the road about doing something that's good for you or something that's not good for you. And understanding that everything matters. It's doing the little things, reading 10 pages of a good book, eating the right food, little things that seem to make no difference in the act of doing them. They don't matter in that moment, but do them consistently, persistently over a long enough period of time for the compounded effect to kick in. And so it's like exercise. Now, I'm an exercise person. I hate going to exercise. I love walking out of the exercise room. Okay. Exercise is okay with me 10 minutes into it. All of a sudden I get going. And I know that. I go, you got to get in there, Jeff, and go. But exercise is the same thing. I mean, when I look at it, it's easy to do. It's easy not to do. It's a discipline, not a discipline. I could take any part of your life, any part of your business, any part of associations, and break it down to simple disciplines. Either you have the discipline or it's a simple error of judgment. It's always easy to do, easy not to do. That's all the slight edges to get people to understand that. And so when people get that principle, and the greatest thing about that, when you get the compounded effect, I mean, that's the compound effect, it kicks in. But then all of a sudden, laws of association start kicking in. And people around you start doing the same thing. Then you get the geometric. You get to apply multiples of what you're doing to it. You get multiples of 10 pages being read, okay? You get multiples of exercise. You get multiples of the right philosophy in a business. And that's where the synergy comes in. It's because synergy is where you go, a group of people go someplace together. You can never go by yourself. That's why all of a sudden the exercise group exercises better. The reading group reads better. Okay. The health group does health better. And all of a sudden you become that person. And now you start tracking that person. You start getting the geometric of it. And all of a sudden you get the leveraging on life by just doing these simple little things consistently and persistently long enough. That's really what the whole principles of the book is about. And I just go through all kinds of demonstrations in there to get people to understand and see it.
I think everybody listening to this podcast is hopeful of a breakthrough or of significant improvement, whether it's business, whether it's just in their general life. But I think people who come here and looking for this podcast and this content, they're looking for what the Slight Edge can give them. And I think we've seen examples of people applying the principle of the Slight Edge. Maybe they didn't even know they were applying the principle of the Slight Edge. And we've seen some significant success stories come out of that. If you were to give advice to people who are maybe just starting their journey, trying to implement the Slight Edge, how does somebody go about applying the Slight Edge philosophy to whether it's business or life or whatever they're applying it to? How do you apply that?
I have 7 things that are important. And the first one is you got to show up. You got to show up consistently. You got to show up with a good attitude. You got to be willing to do it for a long period of time. You got to have desire and faith to do it. You got to be willing to pay the price, because there's always a price. And then you got to do it with integrity. And so a great example of this is my daughter. You've heard from Amber. And I'll never forget this. My daughter did really good in high school. She was graduated top 1%. Okay. And so she got to get into a very prestigious university. And we go to the orientation at that university, and they come out, the dean of students, and says, congratulations, your kids are in a special place. To be here, you had to be basically a straight A student, and you had to be in the upper percentile of the SAT test. Congratulations. My daughter, you could just see the fear come over in that moment. And we go to dinner that night, and she's like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? Because we realized she'd now gone from being the top 1% that she was average. She was her top 1%, and now she's average because everybody around her's like that. And I said, don't worry, Amber, it's going to be so easy to beat these people. First thing you got to do is show up. Second thing is show up consistently. She goes, what do you mean? I go, you need to go to every class. Because you're going to see after a few weeks, these classes start off with 200-300 people are going to be down to 50. She goes, what do you mean? I go, because these kids, all of them are straight A's, but they're leaving structure. They're now they didn't have to have a philosophy there at home. Their parents gave them structure. They studied. They had to. There was discipline. They're now away from their parents, and the only structure they have is the philosophy in their head. You have to see it differently than they see it. So you never miss a class. And that's going to separate you from the masses, just that. She really? I go, yeah. And I go, and you consistently study every day. She's in a sorority. I go, you go to the library and you study for at least 2 hours every day. And then you go back to your sorority and you just do all the crazy things you do in sororities. I mean, I was in a fraternity. I did them all too, and I just say, God, please don't be punishing me for what I did with her. Okay. And so, and so that's what she did. So that was a philosophy. See, it was a Slight Edge philosophy. Show up consistently. She did that. She calls me about 3 weeks later. And she goes, "You're right. These big freshman classes, there's people aren't there. Nobody's flunked out. We haven't even taken a test yet. And you're right. I go to the library when I get home, back to the sorority house. Most of those people have been there all the time. I say, just keep on going. Well, guess what? She graduated top of business school, cum laude, on time, 4 years later. Now, was she smarter than any of those kids? Or was her house better? Her house weren't better. They were the same. Her philosophy was what was different. She would show up consistently and persistently. So that is beginning of how you apply something. You've got to get the importance of showing up consistently and persistently with a good attitude. Attitude is everything, because when you do that, you have the right mindset. See, when you have a right philosophy, the Slight Edge is a philosophy that will shift your attitude, and all of a sudden the hows will work. See, the hows are what's in the books. The hows are what all the other students could do. It's the philosophy. It's to do it. So show up with a good attitude over a long period of time. You can't just do it for a little period of time. She doesn't do that for 4 weeks. She did it for 4 years. and graduate right on time. Okay. Show up persistently with a good attitude over a long period of time. You've got to have desire and faith. Okay. Desire is you got to want something out there. And there's always got to be between what you want and faith are important. You can't want something and not believe what you're doing can get you there. There can't be an incongruency between the two of them. So you got to have something that you desire. A why. You got to have a faith that what you're doing will get you there. But that's not enough if you're not willing to show up consistently, persistently with a good attitude over a long enough period of time. Just because you have desire and faith, I want that and I have faith, means nothing unless you're willing to show up consistently and persistently over a long period of time with a good attitude. Okay. You got to be willing to pay the price. There's a price to pay, okay, to do this. There's a price to pay for Amber to go to every class when other kids weren't going there because she couldn't do what they're doing. There was a price to pay when she went to the library. But the price of discipline, the price of showing up persistently is much greater than the price of neglect. They're much greater than the price of making error in judgment. The problem is all those are so subtle in the moment, they don't really matter, but you got to be willing to pay the price. The last one is so important. You have to do it with integrity. Well, everybody goes, well, of course, integrity. And there's an old definition of integrity. Integrity is what you do when nobody else is watching. See, nobody was watching Amber. She didn't have to go. Okay. And here's the sucker bet and everything. People think I hear everything he says. I'm going to show up consistently, persistently with a good attitude or a long period of time. I'm going to be willing to pay the price. I got desire and faith. I got all the things that's going to make it happen. And guess what? 80% of the decisions you make, maybe 90%, maybe more, you do when nobody else is even watching. And this is where it all happens right here. See, you're sitting there, Amber goes study or not go to study. You're going to read the 10 pages, not read the 10 pages. You're going to go to the gym, not go to the gym. You're going to eat the salad, not eat the salad, eat the hamburger. Every single time. Here's what happens. You go, well, if I don't read these 10 pages of a good book today, I'm not any closer to being successful. And guess what? You're right. You're right. That 10 pages one day is not going to get you there. But you have this goal and dream about your health, your finances, your university, whatever you're doing, okay? You have this big dream out there. The only way you can get there is in the moment. Those 10 pages, let's say, okay? Or going to study, or eating that right thing, or exercising the right thing. See, you say, well, if I do it, I'm really not any closer. And you're right. And you say, if I don't do it, I'm no further away. If I eat this hamburger, I'm not any unhealthier. And you're right. See, the difference between doing the right thing, the simple discipline, versus the wrong thing, the simple error in judgment, easy to do, easy not to do. The difference between the two in the moment is insignificant. Doesn't even matter. Doesn't even matter. But the only thing you have is the moment. You don't have the past. You don't have the future. And the only way you're going to achieve what you want is by doing things in the moment. And the things that are in the moment are insignificant to what you want. And if you do them, you're not any closer to what you want. And if you don't do them, you're not any further away. So it doesn't matter, but you got to get it. It's the only thing you got. So you've got to learn how to do things in the moment that don't matter in the moment, but do them consistently and persistently over a long period of time with a good attitude, driven by desire and faith, willing to pay the price, and do it with integrity. Because you got to do it when nobody else is watching. Because you say, you know what? I'm just not going to do it today because it really doesn't matter. And you're right. It doesn't matter today. And nobody's watching. And you're right. Nobody's watching. So who cares? It's in that moment, right there, when you find out who you are. That's when you find out whether you deserve it or not. Because to be what you want in anything in your life, it's going to be about making a bunch of decisions. Easy to do, easy not to do. Discipline, simple error in judgment. It's insignificant in the moment. Doesn't matter in the moment. Doesn't get any closer to it, farther away from it. But it's the only thing you got. And you don't have anybody else around you watching you. That's when you find out whether you are going to get there, because it's successful people do the little things that seem to make no difference at all in the act of doing them. They do them over and over and over and over and over and over and over. Consistency and persistency over a long period of time with a good attitude, pay the price of desire. They do it with integrity when nobody else is watching. That's what the whole Slide Edge is all about. If you can learn to apply that principle, you pick any challenge you want. You can get there, because it's not quantum leap. It's not standing here at the bottom of the mountain figuring out how to get to the top of the mountain. It's just boom, bada boom, bada boom. When you get that, you can apply it to about anything, and that's the whole application of the Slide Edge.
That's incredible. That's because you're the example. You're walking the talk. People that know you personally know that. People who maybe are not familiar with you in your personal life, that's who you are. Is you live the Slide Edge, showing up consistently, persistently, and that's those of us that know you. That's what we love about you, is that you are the real deal. You keep showing up consistently, persistently, and that's why you have what you have and what you've achieved. There's a great saying. I don't know who said it originally, but it said if you want what somebody has, you have to be willing to do what they did to get it. And I think the Slide Edge is that. It's the blueprint. It helps people get what they want out of life, like you said. If they're willing to put it in, make those decisions when no one else is watching, and do the things that get you to the end result over time. So Jeff, it has been an absolute pleasure. Always a pleasure talking to you, but I think this has been super insightful, especially if you don't know the Slide Edge, you're not familiar with the Slide Edge. Go check it out. You can get the book on Amazon. You can get it anywhere that you can find books. You can find the Slide Edge. There's also an Audible book, an audio book that was just fairly recently put out as well. So if audiobooks are your thing, you can now listen to the Slide Edge on audio. And of course, you can always subscribe here for more great content from Jeff Olson on the Built to Win podcast. So if you like this content, give us a follow, give us a thumbs up, and leave us a review. Let us know what you like. And we will see you next time on the Built to Win podcast.
Thanks, everybody. Take care.
That was Neora's Jeff Olson and Dave Fleming talking about the Slide Edge. Be sure to join us for the next episode when Amber Olson-Rourke shares how you can break through the limiting thoughts that are holding you back and stop playing small. To make sure you don't miss a minute of Built to Win, be sure to go to your favorite place to download podcasts and hit subscribe. And while you're there, please be sure to give us a review and let others know what you think.